I am Roger Herzog, Executive Director of CEDAC, and I'm here today with Rafael Mares, the Executive Director of the Neighborhood Developers since 2018. And we are here to talk about how TND addressed the COVID-19 pandemic in its communities of Chelsea and Revere. So, Rafael, thanks so much for making yourself available. Let's start by summarizing the programs that you worked on in 2020.
So, as I'm sure you're fully aware, 2020 was not a usual year for anyone. And when in March of 2020, the shutdown happened due to the pandemic, we had to respond and shift quickly to working virtually and providing new services and our services in different ways to our community members in Chelsea, Revere, and Everett. So we opened up a hotline to help our communities access various financial supports. And initially, we were relying on existing staff. We were soon overwhelmed, as you can imagine, with the requests. And so we recruited volunteers, and this fluctuated, but we have worked with about 40 volunteers during this time period that have provided thousands of hours of help for us. And in April, we became the first tax preparation site in the region to be approved by the IRS to deliver services virtually so that we could continue to be able to help people prepare their taxes so they could get the valuable earned income return, tax revenue back to them at a time when they really needed it. In May, with the incredible efforts of the United Way, we helped establish the One Chelsea Fund to raise money for rapid, flexible cash assistance for needy Chelsea residents. The fund eventually raised over $1 million, and together with other community-based organizations, we gave out $250 checks to nearly 4,000 Chelsea households. We also gave out cash assistance in Revere that was raised by the Revere Teachers Association and funding that we had from the United Way previously prior to the pandemic. We then quickly shifted to focusing a lot of attention through the hotline on rental assistance because people obviously had a really hard time paying their rent, having lost their jobs during the pandemic. And so we helped people through that process. Originally, the cap was $4,000. It's now $10,000. And so we were able to help a lot of households get through that challenging process and save their housing. In total, between unemployment benefits, we help people with unemployment benefits through the hotline, rental assistance, cash assistance, tax refunds, and so on. We have helped over 3,500 households access over $4.6 million in assistance. And that makes a big difference for our communities in these really hard times.
That is really incredible and such a big impact. Rafael, TND operates in communities that experienced high rates of COVID infection. What actions did you take in your developments to support residents and manage the outbreak?
So Roger, you're right. Chelsea and Revere in particular have been hit very hard by COVID-19. Throughout the pandemic, they were really always at the top of the list of communities with confirmed COVID-19 cases and deaths, unfortunately. Our fabulous resident services team has supported our tenants regularly throughout the pandemic with wellness calls, trying to figure out what the biggest needs are, connecting them to food, medical care, public assistance, and most recently, vaccinations. Our property management company, Win Residential, has also supported our tenants. They've conducted deep cleaning in every building whenever there was a COVID-19 case, and helped support tenants in many other ways, including helping them connect them to rental assistance. The results are really impressive. The number of confirmed cases we learned about in our buildings as compared to the surrounding community is 3 to 4 times lower. And this is not just as a result of the great work that our property managers and our resident services team has done, but it's also just a function of the fact that there's a lot of overcrowding in our communities and private market apartments. The regional housing crisis having put a lot of pressure on our communities, and rents having gone up and property values having increased, people had to come up with their own solutions. There isn't enough affordable housing, and what people do, is they've doubled and tripled up in apartments, which unfortunately gave COVID-19 a chance to spread much faster. In our units, which are affordable and regulated, there isn't overcrowding. There's no need for it, and also because they're affordable, and also because both the landlord and the tenant have a real interest in complying with the regulations in order for the subsidies to come in. There's a much lower spread of the disease, which has really been an incredible outcome during these challenging times.
What's next for TND?
So I think we're going to keep the hotline going, even after the public health threat, hopefully, from the pandemic is over. The economic tail is going to be very long in our communities, and we've learned that the hotline is really a great way to provide people the necessary assistance. And then the other piece is that we've been able to keep the affordable housing construction going during the pandemic, which is really fortunate. We currently have 134 homes in construction, and we're going to be completing one of them this year, very soon, hopefully. And we'll be adding 2 additional projects, one with 38 homes, and then one rehab of existing units. And those are going to be 121 units all that we will start working on. And those are real important contributions to creating more affordable housing and maintaining more affordable housing in our communities. But it's really not enough, unfortunately. The pressures are so great, and the need is so great. And just to give you an idea, the most recent project in Chelsea that we opened up had almost 3,600 applicants for 34 apartments. So that gives you a sense of, how much of a need there is out there for affordable housing. So what we will be doing in addition is we work with community members who are leaders in our community and are interested in advancing policies that increase the opportunities for affordable housing.
Well, you've underscored something that we have seen, that given the huge demand for affordable housing and the crisis, the housing production system has kept going despite the pandemic, and at the state level and at the local levels, the funds are continuing to flow, and despite the health issues involved, we've been able to keep these projects moving, which is really important given what you're describing as this incredible demand.
And Roger, we couldn't have done this without CEDAC. It's really, I want to stress this, just to give you examples. We have one project that we acquired at the very end of 2019 to keep 32 homes affordable. We did that with acquisition and pre-development funding from CEDAC. And as a result, these folks were stably and affordably housed throughout the pandemic. And likewise, one of the construction projects currently that we're working on is in Everett, St. Therese. It's senior housing, 77 units on top of a healthcare center. And there are 3 state subsidies that CEDAC administers that make it possible for us to actually develop this project. And without it, I doubt that it would be possible.
Thanks. And we know how significant the St. Therese project is for you, since it's your first housing development in the city of Everett, which is really important and much needed in that community. Rafael, any lessons that you'd like to share from this extraordinary year we just completed?
There's a bunch. I have learned that working remotely works. I think that if on March 12th last year, you had told me that we have to go and do all our work remotely for what will last longer than a year at least, I would have told you that's not possible. What we do is in person, And it's incredible how quickly our team was able to shift and come up with ways to not just meet the new needs, but also to do it in a way that that allows us to be socially distanced and to work remotely. And so I have a whole new respect for being able to pull things off just sitting at a desk, at home. We already knew that housing was critical for health, but it's probably never been as immediate as in this context. In the past, when we've talked about that, the connection between housing and health, and that housing is a social determinant of health, I don't think we talked about sort of life expectancy. We talked about major health challenges that people experience. But with COVID-19, it really became incredibly immediate and deadly, quite frankly. So it strikes me that an important lesson for all of us to draw from this is that how important affordable, stable housing is in general as a foundation for life, but also for health. Now, I would say that finally, I don't know that I thought much about what a CDC's role is in a crisis before this one hit. And I think that we're not first responders, but we've been asked to play a role of second responders. We're not there, when the trauma happens, but right after, we're there to help meet basic needs, economic needs, psychological needs, in ways of supporting our community that are not usually what we do. We've, for example, gone downstream significantly in the kind of help that we provide, including, some of our staff have helped scale up a food pantry in order to make sure that these basic needs of food and access to food are met in our community. And it just strikes me that as a community development corporation, we need to be prepared that if there are future crises, that we're going to be expected to play that role, and we need to be ready for it, even if we don't know exactly what that role is.
Rafael, thanks so much. You've really demonstrated how a CDC like TND has really met the moment, stretched in ways that we couldn't have imagined just a year ago. And the quality of the services that you deliver and the commitment to your community have led to much better health outcomes than otherwise we see. So really keep up the great work. And we look forward to connecting when we get through this crisis. Thanks again.
Thank you.